Hi, welcome. I have been reading some scandalous French novels in August, and in this video I will be talking about them. I finished Dangerous Liaison by Rousseau de Laclos, and we read this book with the book club. Of course, this book is known for being scandalous because it was published in 1782, and let us just say that it goes a little bit beyond the bare ankle. We did enjoy it with the book club, but everyone kind of felt the same way by the end, that it was a little bit too long, a little bit too repetitive. And it's also an epistolary novel, so the story is told in letters. I found this masterfully done. I didn't know you could do so much with letters. I've had just a lot of moments thinking, goodness, was this really published in 1782? Because there are some really explicit things in here. And I can definitely see why it was so scandalous and controversial at the time of publication. The introduction says something really interesting. It says, "It is not enough to say that we are disgusted at such complicated crimes, but we are actually chilled with horror." And this is really true because we have these two characters who try to ruin a girl's life, and they go on this spree of horrible actions. They are master manipulators, and they are really good at what they do. Apparently, Marie Antoinette ordered a copy and had it rebound just to make sure that it was nameless, that no one knew that this was the book that she was having in her library. It was banned in the court in 1822 for outrage to public morality. And apparently among all of the romantic writers, only Stendhal held it in high esteem. In the beginning of the book, I had a little bit of issues with the different names you get just thrown into these letters. And we have a lot of names that kind of look very similar. It really helped me to create a list so I could see the full names, and in the beginning I had to return to that list quite frequently, but after a while, you get used to all of the characters, all of the names, and it becomes way easier. So let me see if I can find something to read to you as an example. "Just possessing her isn't enough. I want her to surrender willingly. And to do that, it's not only necessary to get her into her house, but for her to let me in herself, to find her alone and ready to listen to me. Above all, to close her eyes to any danger, for if she sees it, she'll be able to overcome it or die in the attempt." Valmont, one of the main characters, is always bragging about his victories. He's very full of himself. He's a real villain, together with Isabelle de Merteuil, and the two of them kind of form a team. And then at the end we get this great plot twist that I really found well executed. But so the two of them form a team to manipulate other people around them. I'm glad I've read something by Rousseau de Laclos, but I can honestly say that I will probably never read it again. It was a little bit too repetitive, and it didn't really provoke deep reflections. So yes, glad that I've read it, but I won't pick it up again. Another one that I've also finished, The Red and the Black by Stendhal. A while back I read the first volume in French, and at the time I found it a bit confusing. I thought it was the French, but now that I've reread it, there are kind of a lot of moments in this book that I found really confusing. I enjoyed this way more than I expected. I've noted down a lot of quotes. There are so many references in this book to other authors and other works of literature. We follow a man called Julien Sorel. He goes teaching to a family, to some children, and he falls in love with the mother. But of course, she is married. The relation cannot be, but he sees her as this kind of victory. He wants to seduce her just for fun, and he eventually does fall in love with her. However, life leads him someplace else, and he is a fanatic Bonapartist, so the novel takes place after the defeat of Napoleon. Julien is an extremely ambitious character, and in the second half of the novel he meets another woman that he is interested in seducing. So here is one of the quotes that I really enjoyed. "When you commit crimes, you should at least do it with enjoyment. That's the only good thing about them, and the only slight justification there is for them." Julien's father really made me laugh with his insults. I frequently switched between the French edition and the English translation, and I know this is a very controversial thing to say, but I enjoy reading it in English so much more, especially when I compare like the sections that I found really funny. For example, Julien's father is, he loves to insult his son. So here are some of my favorite insults. "You lazy bones, you. Won't you ever stop reading your blasted books?" And this one as well. "Answer me without lying if you're capable of it, you revolting bookworm." He also calls him a cheeky devil, which I also really loved. Really enjoyed this book. I may read it again one day, who knows. I also finished The Rhine by Victor Hugo. That wasn't really a scandalous book, so I'll just skip that, but I really loved reading this travel essay. And then of course the book that I wasn't planning on talking about on this channel because it is so extreme is Justine by Marquis de Sade. I had never read anything by de Sade, and I must say, everything you imagine about this author and about his works, it is worse than you imagine. It is way worse. Why did I read this author? You know that I love French literature. There is just something about French literature. And there are very few French authors that I did not enjoy. To be honest, I cannot even think about one of them. So I had to read Marquis de Sade because, you know, I want to read as many French authors as I possibly can during this short period on earth that we have. I had a feeling that it was going to be bad, but it was way worse than I could have possibly imagined. And after reading it, I was really confused as to how on earth this got published. And it's also a mystery to me why these books haven't been banned yet. So I think chances are high that these books will be banned someday. If you want to read them, I suggest you do it now, because I just have the feeling that they won't stay. Okay, I'm not going to go into detail about this book. If you're interested in reading de Sade, I highly recommend first checking his Wikipedia page. You will find a lot of information there. It will shock you. And this is not for the faint-hearted, okay? While I was reading this, I was comparing it to The Nun by Diderot. I think because both books have these main characters that are suffering, and they go from one suffering to another suffering. But in The Nun by Diderot, it felt, I think I made a video about it. If I did, I will link it. I felt so deeply for the sufferings of the woman in The Nun. But I didn't, oh my gosh, I know I sound like the worst person saying this, but I couldn't really relate to Justine's pains and to her sufferings because she felt kind of far away. She felt almost like a fantasy, and the story itself as well. She falls into these extreme unfortunate conditions, and they're just so extreme and so repetitive, because that's a part of this as well. It's so repetitive that it just feels unrealistic. It's almost as if you're reading satire. And I cannot say this for sure. I don't know what de Sade was doing if he was writing satire, because of course he was writing at the times of Voltaire and he was writing satire as well. But you know, I don't know about this book. I don't know what I have to think about it. It's just, all I have to say is beware. Know what you're getting yourself into. This is not an author that I would recommend to anyone ever. So I would say check out the Wikipedia page and decide for yourself, because that's all I'm gonna say about it. I don't want my video to be taken down by YouTube or something. Okay, next, I've also been reading Voltaire because he was referenced in, I don't know, one of these books, and I wanted to read an essay, and I've picked Toleration. This is an essay. I can see why it was controversial at the time, because he is making arguments against Christianity and how Christians treat other people, how fanatic Christians are dangerous, and so he gives all of these arguments against fanatics. The reason why he wrote this was because there was a man condemned to death because it was said that he killed his own son. His son had different Christian beliefs as he did, and his son killed himself at a certain moment, and people said that the father killed the son because he had different Christian beliefs. The man was murdered, and Voltaire found it necessary to talk about it. It was kind of difficult to get through, but I did enjoy reading it. I had to stay really focused, and he made some really, really great arguments. I am definitely planning on reading more Voltaire. So far, I had only read Candide, and I'm looking forward to reading more. Another book that I'm currently reading, and not scandalous at all, is Jean-Jacques Rousseau's Confessions. At this moment, I'm this far into the book. It started out so great that I decided to highlight and underline, because on every page I found something to underline and to remember and to write down. So I really felt that I needed to mark up this book. I don't do this often, but it sparked so many thoughts that I just had to. But anyway, it started out really strong. But right now I'm struggling just a little bit because something's missing. I can see that he is a phenomenal author, and I would be very much interested to reading one of his fictional works. I still have to look into what he has been writing, because to be honest, I don't really know a lot about Rousseau. I know that he was one of the big authors, and I'm definitely going to be looking into this. I'm very much impressed. Let me just find a quote. There's also a lot of love for books and music in here. So let me just read you some quotes. It is not what is criminal that is the hardest to reveal, but what is laughable or shameful. These are just quotes that make me reflect and think and, ask myself, why is this? And do I agree? To be loved by all who came near me was my most urgent wish. The question that this sparked in me was, why do we feel the need to be loved by everyone? Because I've been feeling this all my life. I'm kind of a people pleaser. I always try to make everyone happy, and I try to be liked by everybody, but I realized quite late in life, actually, to my great shame, that it isn't possible to be liked by everyone. It kind of reminded me of a quote by Oscar Wilde. Anybody can sympathize with the sufferings of a friend, but it requires a very fine nature to sympathize with a friend's success. I think that quote has so much truth in it, and I love linking different books with each other, different thoughts with each other. So when this happens, when I can link something that an author says and link it to what another author has said about a certain topic, it just makes me ecstatic. I just love finding connections and linking different works with each other. Anyway, another thing that I marked is I had feelings before I had thoughts. That is a common lot of humanity. And I also find it very strong to start the book with saying, "My birth was the first of my misfortunes." Yes. I am also still reading Shogun by James Clavell. I guess it's okay, but I'm not loving it, and I need to force myself to continue. It's a very big book. It's slow in progress. I don't really care about any of the characters. Not that I have to, but there's nothing that keeps me reading, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I'm going very slow with Shogun. It's upstairs on my nightstand. And in September, I will also be starting The Night of Maison Rouge by Alexandre Dumas. We will be reading it with the book club during the month of September. And yes, that's all I had to say. Those were all of my updates. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books. And I really hope to see you next week.